Hello and welcome back to our fifth module on EU space governance. In today's video, we'll dive into the fascinating world of midstream and downstream markets within the European Union's space sector. And we'll specifically focus on how the European Union is fostering this entrepreneurial ecosystem around its flagship space programs like GALILEO, COPERNICUS, and EGNOS. Now, this video will guide you through the following key areas. First, we'll define and explain the midstream and downstream markets in the context of space. Next, we'll discuss the various initiatives of the European Union that are aimed at promoting commercial products derived from EU space data, with a special focus on the role of downstream space in open science. Then we'll briefly explore the concept of anchor tenancy and how it can benefit the downstream space segment, specifically using examples from the approach taken by the US. After that, we'll touch upon how data-driven space projects are being used for the exploration of outer space, with the recent Moonlight project as a case study. And finally, we'll conclude with a brief summary of our discussion. Now, let's begin by understanding what we mean by midstream and downstream markets, specifically in the context of space. So, in the space industry, the value chain is typically divided into three separate segments: upstream, midstream, and downstream. Now, as we saw in the previous video, the upstream segment involves the design, the manufacturing, and the launch of satellites and space vehicles. The midstream market primarily deals with the data that is generated by these satellites, and the downstream market is more concerned with the actual applications of this data for end users across various industries. So the midstream segment is, of course, critical because it involves the collection, the processing, and the storage of space-derived data. Now, this data is primarily generated by Earth observation satellites, such as those of the Copernicus program, as well as positioning satellites like those of the GALILEO component. So the midstream market is really where raw data is transformed into usable information through processing and analysis. And companies in this segment often develop algorithms and platforms just to manage and interpret the vast amounts of data collected by satellites. So next, the downstream market takes this processed data and uses it to create products and services for consumers and businesses. So this includes a wide range of applications, whether it's in navigation, agriculture, urban planning, disaster management, environmental monitoring, to name just a few. And the business models in this downstream market segment often revolve around providing value-added services or solutions based on space data. So these two segments, downstream and midstream, are clearly interconnected, right? And they're critical to the space economy, especially because they drive innovation and entrepreneurship in space. So now that we've briefly outlined what midstream and downstream markets are, let's explore how the European Union is trying to promote really the commercial use of space data, particularly through the use of its flagship space programs. So the European Union has been rather proactive in trying to create an environment where space data can be used to develop commercial products. And this specific effort in space is part of the broader European space strategy and the European strategy for data, both of which aim to boost innovation, market growth, and economic benefits within the European Union through the use of, among other things, space data. Now, at the heart of the EU's approach to space data is a really strong commitment to open data principles. The EU recognizes that access to high-quality data is essential for driving innovation, for economic growth, and for a variety of societal benefits. Now, this commitment is enshrined in various policy documents, including the European Strategy for Data, which we just mentioned, and which emphasizes really the importance of making data freely available to foster an open and competitive data economy. Now, one of the key pillars of the EU's approach to space data is the open data policy under the COPERNICUS program. As the EU's leading Earth observation program, COPERNICUS is dedicated to providing free, full, and open access to its data. This open data policy is specifically designed to encourage innovation by allowing businesses, researchers, and governments to develop new products and services without the barrier of high data costs. So, for example, the European Data Portal, which provides access to Copernicus data, has enabled various startups and SMEs to create applications ranging from precision agriculture to smart city planning. And these applications are not only commercially viable, but they of course also contribute to the EU's own goals of sustainability and resilience. Now, as I already mentioned, the Commission's European Strategy for Data really reinforces this EU's commitment to open data. So this strategy document, among other things, notes that the European Union will continue to make data resulting from its own research and deployment programs available in line with the principle as open as possible and as closed as necessary. So this includes contributing data and infrastructure from, among other things, the Copernicus program to underpinning the European data spaces where that is relevant. Now, let's talk about the role of anchor tenancy in the downstream space segment. So anchor tenancy is a procurement strategy where a government or large organization, but in this case it would be the European Union, commits to purchasing a significant portion of the output of a private entity. So in the context of the space industry, this clearly can provide financial security that is much needed for private companies to invest in developing new technologies or services. And specifically for the downstream space segment, anchor tenancy can play a crucial role in reducing market risks, in enabling companies to scale up their operations, and to also encourage really private investment. So this concept of anchor tenancy in the context of space has been utilized rather successfully in the United States, where NASA as well as the Department of Defense have used these anchor tenancy agreements to stimulate the participation of and development of the commercial space industry. So, for example, NASA's commitment to purchasing satellite communications services from private providers have really helped establish a robust commercial market in that sector. And the EU could clearly adopt a similar approach, and particularly in this downstream space market, to encourage the development of innovative applications based on EU space data. Now let's talk a little bit more about the importance of a strong EU policy for supporting the downstream space market. So data-driven space projects are not only crucial for applications on Earth, they are really increasingly important for the exploration of outer space itself as well. And a prime example of this is the recently launched Moonlight project, which is an ambitious European initiative that is aimed at creating a satellite-based communication and navigation system for the moon. As part of the larger lunar exploration strategy of the European Space Agency, the Moonlight Initiative seeks to establish a reliable and sustainable infrastructure on the moon. And this involves, of course, deploying satellites around the moon to provide communication and navigation services, much like how GALILEO and EGNOS provide these kinds of services for use on Earth. So the Moonlight Initiative is politically rather significant because it represents Europe's commitment to really being a major player in the global space race. And by investing in lunar infrastructure, ESA is not only contributing to international space exploration efforts, but it's also ensuring that it has a stake in the future lunar economy. And this project really highlights how data-driven initiatives can extend beyond Earth and can support both scientific discovery and commercial opportunities in space. And European Union obviously would do well to support this and other like projects to further develop the downstream space market in Europe. So, in conclusion, the efforts of the European Union in promoting midstream and downstream space markets are integral to building a vibrant and innovative space economy. So, through open data policies, support for entrepreneurship in space, and by taking a cue from strategic projects like the Moonlight Initiative and anchor tenancy agreements in the US, the European Union can significantly strengthen the groundwork for a thriving space sector that really benefits society at large. And as we move forward, the next video in this module will explore the role of SMEs, particularly in the EU space policy, and how they can contribute to the broader programmatic vision of EU space governance. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.